The Royals storm back from being 5 runs down as the offense erupts for 10 runs in Jac Caglianone's debut. Even better, we were here to see it in person. We'll give you our thoughts next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into a very special edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you call it, at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. And as you can tell, we're in a hotel room because we're here in St. Louis. We just came over from Busch Stadium. This was the quickest I could get back to my hotel room after being down in the clubhouse afterwards, getting post-game audio. We'll give you everything you need to know throughout this episode, talking about the offense, talking about Jac Caglianone's debut, and what the Royals have ahead of them with their pitching rotation over the next 2 days, and really moving forward. But that will be throughout tonight's episode. Just wanted to give a breakdown as to why I'm doing this from a dark hotel room. All I got in this room is a lamp, so don't have an overhead ceiling light. So this will have to work for at least tonight's episode. Tomorrow, we're going to be back to normal. Now, as for you new listeners, I should say, checking in on us for the first time, here's how the format works. We bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes. We also give you 60-second shorts on our YouTube channel after the game, and that carries into the weekend. So we don't usually bring you episodes on the weekend, 30-minute ones, but we do give you those 60-second shorts after each and every Royals game. And we'll also be having a Royals postcast coming up very, very soon. Chance Lebo will be the host doing that. Those will be 15-minute post-game reactions right after the game, of course, and those will be live. So a lot of Royals content coming your way, and Chance will do a great job with that. You can also check out our interview that we had with him a few days back on Locked On Royals. Now, before we dive into anything, I want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by Supply House. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Where to begin, truthfully, with this game? Being there really since 2 o'clock this afternoon, there was just this buzz that was going around the entire stadium. Now, fans weren't there just yet, but everybody knew how important tonight was to have those pregame interviews. I mean, down before the game, I'm sure you caught it on the pregame show on the FanDuel Sports Network, but the dugout was packed today. I mean, with all kinds of media, talking to J.J. Piccolo, talking to Jac Caglianone, eventually later on talking to Matt Quatraro down in the clubhouse before the game. It was packed. I had really never seen anything like it. Now, I will say I was not doing this job when Bobby Witt Jr. made his major league debut. I'm sure back then there was a lot of coverage out there at Kauffman Stadium. I have no doubt in my mind about it. But for this being on the road, it really made me think of the All-Star break last year when we were down in Arlington, and there were just these massive media scrums around Shohei Ohtani, around Aaron Judge. That's what it was like for Jac Caglianone. There were probably 25 to 30 TV reporters and radio personalities down there just wanting to hear the words of Jac Caglianone before his big league debut. And we'll give you our thoughts on that in the second segment. What we have to highlight, though, is that offense. And so the reason I bring up this buzz is going into the game, after the first inning, there was still that legitimate buzz amongst Royals fans. There were a lot of Royals fans out there tonight. I definitely want to know if you made the trip out to St. Louis today, you're staying for the week. Would love to hear your stories from the crowd, because I thought from where I was sitting up in the press box, there was a lot of Royals fans tonight. Now, that was actually my first trip to Busch Stadium, believe it or not. And I just know from TV experience, watching on TV, that a lot of those series in St. Louis do bring out Royals fans, but it's not like the way it is in Kansas City, where you have a ton of St. Louis fans there every single time. But once this game started to slip out of their control, After that 2-run home run by Bobby Witt Jr., the offense goes quietly over the next handful of innings. I want to say that Andre Palante sat down the next 12. But St. Louis just erupted for 7 runs. They had a 2-run home run from Nolan Gorman. They had a RBI double from Contreras. They also had another 2-run home run from Brendan Donovan, I want to believe it was. It just was spiraling for Michael Lorenzen. And as I'm sitting there up in the press box, it was definitely a stinging type of feel, because this had only been one time through the order for Jac Caglianone. Like, you wanted him to have important at-bats every time he was up there. You didn't want him, getting his first big league hit when it was 10-2 St. Louis, and the Royals fans are quiet once again. But you talk about coming out of nowhere. This offense having a 6-run 5th inning, and the way they did it was so impressive. And I didn't really have the opportunity to say this in the pregame portion, right? Whether it be on Twitter or it be hopping on Sports Radio 810 with Seren Petro. By the way, if you want to hear more segments, I'll be on A New Day with SSJ tomorrow around 8:30. I'll be on The Zone with Sterling Holmes coming up around 10 o'clock. And then we'll see for later on. But back to normal with this podcast beginning tomorrow night after the game. But this offense, not scrapping together 6 runs. I mean, that inning began with Jac Caglianone grounding out to Nolan Arenado at 112 miles an hour. And then Nick Lofton follows it up with a home run. Just crushed it. And even though in the post-game locker room interview, he said that he wasn't sure if he got all of it or he just wanted to put a good swing on it, he knew he got all of it. He stood there at the plate, admired it a little bit, and as you should when you hit a ball that hard. But then everybody else just kind of fell in line. You had Drew Waters hit a baseball really hard. You had Kyle Isbell hit a baseball really hard. Jonathan India, who had a 3-hit night and played good defense over at second base, he had another single to center field. And it set up Bobby Witt Jr. in a 4-run game to come to the plate as the tying run. And I wanted to really highlight that moment in the game, because it feels like even if it wasn't Bobby Witt Jr., there were so many times this season where somebody came to the plate representing the tying run, whether it be in the 9th inning or the 6th inning or the 3rd inning. It was a big moment in the game. And that at-bat would never go the way you wanted it to. It was a pop-out. It was a strikeout. It was a ground-out. And the way Bobby Witt Jr. worked that at-bat, that's what MVP players do. He fell behind in the count, 1-2. He spit on a couple of tough pitches, fouled off a couple of tough pitches, and then just roped one to left field. And then it's a 2-run game. And Maikel Garcia comes up, grounds out to flies out to right field. So now you have 1st and 3rd, and here comes Vinny Pasquantino facing Steven Matz, and you just want to put a good swing on the ball. You don't want to do too much. You don't need to put one in the seats to give them the lead. Just try to get the 6th run home. And he just annihilates one into the gap in right center field. Bobby easily scores, tie game, and they don't even stop there. You get Salvi to come through, who was down 1 spot in the order tonight in the lineup. And he comes through with 2 outs. Now it's 8-7. And then later on in the game, you get that 2-run single from Maikel Garcia, and that was all they needed. What was so important about tonight's showing is that it wasn't, the 11 runs that they had in Baltimore where they had, 6 or 7 solo home runs. This was 10 runs on 13 hits, and they left 5 on base. How often had that been an issue for the Royals where they leave 10 or 12 on base, and you were just always left wanting more? That was not an issue tonight. And St. Louis has been playing good ball really ever since the beginning few weeks of the season. They were facing Andre Palante, who hasn't been great but hasn't been bad. And the bullpen was really good in Kansas City. So the Royals knew that's what they had stacked up against him. But you saw some really good at-bats. And that just keeps circling back to the buzz that there certainly was. There was just that buzz before the game, and everybody knew that there was going to be this new lineup, and Jac Caglianone was going to be in there. And it just gave you that fresh start. Maybe I'm the only one that does this, but every time there's a lineup shakeup or there's a new player on the roster, you pinpoint it and say, well, I'm going to go back to this date because if it works out well for my superstitious reasons, I will say that's the reason it worked out. And we'll see what they look like tomorrow, assuming that game is played. But to have Jac Caglianone in the lineup and he goes 0 for 5, he was the only hitless Royal tonight, and yet you put up 10 runs, it felt different. It felt like it was the most impressive win of the year. And I'm not trying to be a prisoner of the moment, but to come back down 7-2 on the road in a rivalry series, that's impressive stuff. And I absolutely tip my cap to the bullpen for what they were able to do. 6 1/3 scoreless innings. What more can you say? With the offense, with the bullpen, and the way they stole game 1 from the St. Louis Cardinals. All right, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, let's talk about that debut of Jac Caglianone. He went hitless, but man, did he hit the hell out of the ball. I'll give you my thoughts next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, coming to you live from my hotel room in St. Louis, about 10 minutes from Busch Stadium, where I just was all day long. But we've got so much to cover in tonight's episode. Now, before we go any further, I want to tell you about Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. That's Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Again, that's promo code SH5 for 5% off on your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. I can't believe we're actually saving this for the second segment. I had fully planned. In fact, the little show breakdown that we have on the right, if you're watching on YouTube and you like the visual part of it, the first segment until about 8 o'clock tonight, 8:30, was just going to be about the debut of Jac Caglianone. What he did, whether it was great or it was poor, that was going to be what led us off. Then the offense erupts for 10 runs. It was one off their season high, which was 11 in Baltimore. So that obviously had to be the thing that we led off with. But now we get to what we saw from Jac Caglianone. And it was truly a marvel to watch, like pregame stuff down there on the field, watch batting practice, watch how he carried himself in the clubhouse and on the field. It's not to really be in awe of everything he does, but he's one of those players that you just know when he's walking around the area, when he walks into the clubhouse, it's a presence. It's an aura about him. And that did carry into each and every at-bat that he had. The Royals fans that made the trip out there, I mean, he got by far and away the loudest cheer during starting lineups. When he got to the plate for the first time, it was noticeably loud. A lot of people standing, a lot of people with their phones out. They were ready to watch history. They were ready to see him put one 450 feet from home plate. And in that first at bat, I thought it was so telling that the first pitch he sees is 95 up, and he just swings as hard as you possibly could. And I wanted to double check on it because it didn't seem like a very free and easy swing. It seemed like he was trying to crush a first pitch strike, but Palante didn't want to make that mistake. It was a bit up in the zone. His bat speed tonight was well above the league average. Like, he had one swing tonight that was clocked at 84 miles an hour. Like, the hardest that we see from the Royals on average is in the high 70s for bat speed. It's not everything, as we saw with Vinny Pasquantino being very open about bat speed and having to adjust to the timing. What I was so impressed by is he falls behind 1-2. Felt like the stereotypical strikeout spot for a rookie. You get a professional guy that's just going to bury one in the dirt down at your back foot, and you swing over the top. And he gets a curveball that is right on the black. And it wasn't even a full 100% swing, and he just ropes it to right center. And Victor Scott, who's one of the better defensive center fielders in the entire sport, he's shaded in left center, and he runs the damn thing down. Didn't really need to jump at the end, but was probably having his eyes bounce up and down a little bit and just felt more comfortable jumping. So he gets robbed in his first at bat. It was a catchable ball for Victor Scott. Still a hell of a play, but you don't feel bad at all about that swing. 1-2. It was a powerful swing, but not fully 100%. You don't want to go 100% on a pitch like that. You'll strike out. And he just guides it to the warning track in right center. And a lot of people on the timeline are going, that's as excited as I've been for a fly out in a long time. Although Baseball Savant actually categorized it as a line out, maybe because of the launch angle and how hard it was hit, which was only about 98.4, I want to say, which brings me to the second at bat. He goes up there. He was aggressive, and he was aggressive all night. But first pitch he sees, or it might have been the second pitch now that I think about it, just steamrolls one to third base. Any other third baseman, not named Nolan Arenado, maybe don't get there because he hit it at 112 the other way. 112.1 to third base. Now, Nolan Arenado didn't have to move a ton. It wasn't a diving play. It was still an impressive play. Backhand play, flips it over to first. He's 0 for 2. You feel like he could have been 2 for 2 if he was playing in AAA or AA. In the third at bat, he has I want to say his third at bat was the hard ground ball to first base. That was in the 6-run inning. That was not a extra effort play, just a hard ground down. And that one was upper 90s as well. You get to his fourth at bat. He's got the broken bat play where Nolan Arenado again shifted a little bit over towards short. He goes into the hole a little bit. It was hit under 70 miles an hour, so let's not get it twisted. But it was a nice play. Like when we're watching that happen with Nolan Arenado, it was smooth. It was not a routine ground ball like the one over at first base. But then in his fifth at bat, still looking for his first hit, he hits the hardest ball of the night to second base. And what's even crazier, it was a 3 or 4 hopper. It was not one that was just right on the ground, barely got up, and it's just on a line, right? Because I can see those from time to time where you've got the ones that just never have a hop in them, it seems like. It's like a line drive on the ground, and it's hit at 115 or 116. This was a 3 or 4 hopper that by the time the camera reacted to it, it was already in the glove of the second baseman, which I believe was Nolan Gorman tonight. 114. So 0 for 5. 2 of those plays were routine, though they were smashed. And the other 3 were good or great defensive plays. He was the only hitless player in the lineup tonight. But I said this on the program with Seren Petro before I headed over to Busch Stadium. I said what I'll take tonight. I'll put the bar a little bit lower. I'm not asking for 2 home runs or driving in 3 or 4 runs like Bobby Witt Jr. did tonight. Give me 4 hard hit balls where even if you're over, you're not going to nitpick a lot. You'll say, hey, you do that every single time. You've got 2 balls that are hit north of 110, and one of those was to the opposite field. You're going to have a lot of multi-hit games. Let's also bring up the fact that the St. Louis Cardinals are one of the best defensive teams in baseball. That is what they shine at. Victor Scott is a stud. Nolan Arenado is a stud. They get great defense in the corner outfield spots. They get great defense at second base. They get great defense behind the plate. Their pitchers field well. So you got that going against you. It reminds me a lot of the great defensive Royals teams, and I know they've had a lot of them, but when you just couldn't get the ball down anywhere, Lorenzo Cain would run it down. Alex Gordon would run it down. You know, you'd get great plays on the infield as well. You'd have great digs at first base from Hosmer. Like the Cardinals just do not make mistakes, which makes this come from behind victory that much more impressive. They couldn't use the errors in the field. They didn't have the drop pop-up like the White Sox did in that series where Mydroth had it hit him in the forehead. You had to string together hits, and you had to put the ball in the gap and over the fence, and they did that. And I have no doubt in my mind, assuming the game is played tomorrow, Jac Caglianone does that again, he's getting 2 hits. I mean, if you hit the ball that hard 4 out of the 5 times, you're going to have something find the grass. Or better yet, you're going to have one land in the bleachers. And even batting practice today, like talking about it being a marvel, a spectacle, everybody was watching his BP. and he put one on the berm. He put one over the bullpen in right center field. He had another one in right field. He's one of those guys that you stop and watches it bat. And I believe that's going to continue for the rest of the year. Hopefully they get that game in tomorrow. The only reason I keep saying that is I've had a few people text me and tell me, well, they might not play tomorrow. Tomorrow it looks like it will be 75 with a 55% chance of rain. Though what I'm seeing is a lot of sunshine tomorrow. Or actually, I'm stupid. That is in Kansas City, where they're not going to be playing. Though I heard awful weather in Kansas City, and hope everybody's okay where they may be listening tonight. For St. Louis, though, 95% chance of rain. So sorry to lead everybody astray there. It is supposed to rain really beginning at 5 p.m. tomorrow, that 35% chance. So we'll see if they get it in. I expect him to be in the lineup. Miles Michaelis will be throwing for the Cardinals, and Noah Cameron will be on the bump for Kansas City. Let's take our final break of the show. When we come back, speaking of that rotation, who do they have lined up to go on Thursday? And what did Mac Quatrero say about a six-man rotation and when they need to make a decision? That's coming up next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned in to Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, coming to you live from St. Louis, where I was just in attendance for Jac Caglianone's Major League debut and a Royals 10-7 win. You want to listen to any of our podcasts, especially this one, ones before that, and ones moving forward, you can get them on wherever you listen to your podcast throughout the day. As for our final segment, let's talk about this rotation. And I believe it's a perfect time to segue from the offense and Jac Caglianone to a very pressing matter of this team. With what happened tonight with Michael Lorenzen, the Royals are going to need to make a decision. And Mac Quatrero was actually asked that in the dugout today that I was down there for. And he did say that Cole Reagans is going to start on Thursday. They feel good with what he did in Northwest Arkansas, not stat line wise, but more so how he was feeling. And he's going to get to go on Thursday. So Noah Cameron throws tomorrow. Cole Reagans throws on Thursday. And then we'll see what it all lines up for on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday when the Royals head to the South Side and take on the Chicago White Sox. This is about the decision they need to make on Thursday. And that's what Mac Quatrero said. He was asked about a six-man rotation. He was asked about what they plan to do, and he said, we're going to need to make a decision on Thursday, whether that be going with a six-man rotation or that be moving Michael Lorenzen or Noah Cameron to the bullpen. After tonight, I'm sure a lot of people that'll be commenting, a lot of people that are watching this podcast, you would say it's simple. You put Michael Lorenzen in the bullpen, and you give Noah Cameron the spot. It's not always that simple. The Royals will have their reasoning. They will have their plans, and they'll have, an answer to those plans. They will have to answer why they'd go to a six-man rotation. It is June 3rd, going to be June 4th, and it'll be June 5th when Cole Reagans makes that start. You will need to send somebody down. My guess will be Andrew Hoffman, who did make his Major League debut over the weekend on Friday. But that feels like the likeliest option with who's out there in the bullpen. So Cole Reagans would be activated. You make that switch. And now somebody does need to go to the bullpen, in my opinion. Maybe not. Maybe you can roll the six-man rotation, and having that extra rest could help everybody. It could help Michael Lorenzen. It could help Lugo. It could help Cole Reagans. It could even help someone like Noah Cameron. I'm just finding it very hard to argue against Noah Cameron's job in the rotation, if that makes sense. Like I can't come up with many reasons as to why he'd be moved to the bullpen, or even after tonight with the struggles that Lorenzen has had, maybe he does get right in the bullpen for a little bit, and then you do go with a six-man rotation. Because I'm still, fine with Michael Lorenzen getting starts. I feel that they brought him in to be that swingman, to be that number 5 guy, and that's still very valuable. But right now, maybe the best solution is to put him in the bullpen. I mean, Daniel Lynch got hit by a comebacker tonight. He's been used a little bit as that long relief guy. You also don't need a long relief guy if your rotation is throwing as many innings as the Royals are. You can have multiple inning guys, somebody that can go out there and get you 6 outs or get you 9 outs, and Lorenzen could be one of those pitchers for them. But with Noah Cameron, whether he pitches well or doesn't pitch well tomorrow, I feel he has a rotation spot locked up. I've seen one of the arguments of you want to keep your starting pitching depth really strong. You want to keep him stretched out. So either Noah Cameron stays in the rotation or he goes back down to Omaha and stays stretched out instead of going to the bullpen. With Lorenzen, there is a risk in putting him in the bullpen. And here's that risk. If somebody goes down or misses a start again, and he's been throwing in the bullpen and relief for 1 inning or 2 innings, he then loses that ability to go 5-6 innings. And you're going to have to turn to somebody else to be that spot starter. And with that uncertainty of Seth Lugo and Cole Reagans, you feel that they are 100%. I don't believe they'd be making starts in Kansas City if that was not the case. But if one of them were to go back on the injured list, the finger strain, flares back up, the groin strain flares back up, and you've moved Michael Lorenzen to the bullpen, well, now you might need to pull somebody up from Omaha to make starts for you. Now, it also does depend how long he's been in the bullpen. If he were to go to the bullpen on Thursday and have 1 or 2 outings where he throws 20 to 25 pitches, that doesn't mean he can't start the next go-around if somebody was to wind up back on the injured list. But if you get 7, 8, 9, 10 outings down the road, you get to next month or a month after that, and he's been in the bullpen, you're locking it in at that point that he is going to be throwing out of the bullpen. And if you do put him out there to make a spot start, it ain't going to be for 6 or 7 innings like we've seen before from him. This is also just a human part of the game of baseball. He's in a rough stretch. He has not been great over his last 3 starts. And it happens. Everybody's going to go through rough stretches, including Noah Cameron, including Cole Reagans, who already has done that this year. Lugo's going to have rough stretches. Michael Wacha is. They're going to have bad outings. So to highlight these last 3 or 4 and say, I'm done with them, I need him to go to the bullpen, I believe that can be reckless because the 6-man rotation can still work. You can have all these guys make starts, give everybody an extra day of rest, and on off days, you could give some guys a week. You also can look at the numbers that you produce after that. Is the extra day of rest or a week off going to get you out of sync? It's going to get you off your rhythm a little bit. So Matt Quatraro, Brian Sweeney, Zach Bove, Mitch Stetter, Paul Hoover, these guys are going to come together, and they are going to come up with a definitive solution for what to do moving forward. My gut tells me that Noah Cameron is going to have a spot, and Michael Lorenzen, for now, is going to be available in the bullpen. And not for this series. Maybe it would be in Chicago. I just want to say that's my gut feeling. Maybe I'm reading into too much of tonight. They used a lot of bullpen arms. They gave up 7 runs. And they're going to need some fresh arms down there. And with Daniel Lynch getting hit by the comebacker, he actually had like ice on it in the locker room or the clubhouse after the game tonight. We'll know more, I'm sure, tomorrow about what's going on with Daniel Lynch, who did battle through it, was able to get out of that jam or at least get 1 out in that jam where he got hit by the comebacker, and Steven Cruz picked him up the rest of the way. But you need an extra arm out there. If you're going to send Andrew Hoffman down, you can have an available arm out there, a right-handed arm at that could give you multiple innings. You also could do this where Cole Reagans is activated, he starts on Thursday, and Michael Lorenzen is in the bullpen until the next time up in the rotation. Like if you got through Reagans and then you were to go, who would that be? Lugo on Friday, and then you have Wacha, and then you'd have Bubic. You could then have Michael Lorenzen throw on Tuesday against the Yankees, or you could skip that start and you could go straight into Noah Cameron for that game against the New York Yankees. There's a couple different ways they can evaluate this. But in my opinion, to have an extra arm available is fine while you're going through the rotation. But if you were to throw a day or 2 before he's due up, then yeah, you may have to skip him in that rotation. So maybe you can kind of have an answer, but not a firm one once you activate Reagans. To me, that'll be the simple choice of Reagans gets activated, Andrew Hoffman gets sent back down, and then you need an extra arm in the bullpen. Even if Daniel Lynch is fine, he avoids an IL stint, he's just a bit banged up. You want to have an extra arm out there and hopefully a fresh arm that could give you some innings in that Chicago series and maybe in that Yankee series. Well, that's going to do it from our St. Louis edition, or live in St. Louis edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Before we say goodnight, thank you for making Locked On Royals another listen today. And for your next listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to have another breakdown of Game 2, what we make of Noah Cameron's start, and if Jac Caglianone gets his first hit in the big leagues. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.